Well, this is the 15th segment of dealing with the subject of the Exodus, and we're getting him closer to the promised land. Unfortunately, we're going to look at a gentleman, lose that term very loosely, a guy named Balaam. And see, after the golden calf incident, God was very wroth at the children of Israel. And he said that he wasn't going to go anywhere else with them. That's it. I had it. God quit. He said, if I hang around, I'm just going to consume them along the way for their stiff-necked, stubborn, rebellious actions. But God relented under Moses' intercession on behalf of the people. Unfortunately, there are many accounts of God having to take actions against them because of their rebellious actions. I mean, God just said, I'm going to send an angel. I'm not going in. I'll just consume them along the way. And how many records have we read almost every night? God's consuming them because of their actions. Oh, let's keep the Sabbath. Oh, look, somebody's out there picking up stuff and, handling the Sabbath. What should we do with them? Well, kill them. It kind of stopped anybody else from doing it. So anyway, in Exodus 33, 1-5. And the Lord said to Moses, here it is, depart. You go up hence. You take the people with you, right? You brought them out of the land of Egypt. You'll take, unto this land. I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I'm going to give it to them. Unto thy seed, I'm going to give it. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to send an angel before you. And that angel will help you guys drive out the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And it'll get you into a land flowing with milk and honey. But I'm not going to go up. I'm not going up in the midst of you. You're a stiff-necked people, lest I consume thee in the way. There it is. I'm just so tired of the rebellious attitude, I'm just going to take them out. I'm going to consume them in the way if I go. And when the people heard these evil tidings, they mourned. Oh, I bet they did. And no man did put on his ornaments. For the Lord had said to Moses, say unto the children of Israel, you are a stiff-necked people. I will come up into the midst of thee in a moment and consume thee. I mean, this is God who's capable of having something like this happen. Right? I'll just come up in the midst of you in a moment and consume you, you stiff-necked, rebellious, unthankful, disobedient, and everything else you can think of. Therefore, put off those ornaments from thee that I may know what to do with thee. But this is an interesting record in Numbers 22. See, God said, I will come up into the midst of thee in a moment and consume thee. God has to do this because of their unbelief and disobedience many times. God does leave the door open for his mercy to reign over all on the Israelites when Moses makes intercession on their behalf. And you always get thankful that Jesus Christ already has made intercession for all of us so that we don't have to deal with something like this. Because sometimes we're a tad stiff-necked ourselves. So, Numbers 22, verses 1 and 2.
And the children of Israel set forward and pitched in the plains of Moab on this side Jordan by Jericho. And Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites.
And that was last week. They'd taken out Og and Sihon. They'd killed Sihon and Og, the rulers of the Amorites, and occupied their lands. And that would have a dreadful impact on the other nations in the area, especially Balak, the king of the Moabites. Because as they're systematically getting closer, the land of Moab is next. So they've taken out, the land of the Amorites, and they just moved into their houses and vineyards and all of that. They've got it all, and they're moving further into the land of Moab now. Verse 3, and Moab was sore afraid of the people. First off, because there was 2 million of them. There's a lot of people. And Moab was distressed. Heck, they were overcome with fear because of the children of Israel. And Moab said unto the elders of Midian, now shall this company lick up all that are round about us, as the ox licks up the grass of the field. And Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of the Moabites at that time. He sent messengers, therefore, unto Balaam, the son of Beor, to Pethor, which is by the river of the land of the children of his people, to call him, saying, behold, there's a people that came out of Egypt. This is 40 years later, but they're still being referred to as the people that came out of Egypt. the local nations had spies. They knew where they were at all the time, as we'll see with Jericho. The woman, the woman in the wall. I mean, she saw what was going on. She recognized what their God had done for them. So they're saying these people came out of Egypt. Behold, they cover the face of the earth. They abide over against they're dwelling opposite of where I live. Come now, Balaam, I pray thee, curse me this people, for they are too mighty for me. Peradventure I shall prevail, that we may defeat them, that I may drive them out of the land. For I know that he whom thou blessed is blessed, and he whom thou cursest is cursed. So King Balak, out of fear, decides to call for his expensive secret weapon. One who knows how to bless and curse people. His name, Balaam. This weapon is many miles away. He was living in Mesopotamia on the Euphrates, quite a distance from the land of the Moabites, who are dwelling near the Dead Sea. It would take the messengers of Balak some time to travel there and to travel back. Balaam was a well-known, in parentheses, prophet for hire. He was a well-known prophet for hire. People were they were aware of him. If you went on Indeed, you'd see his name first there. If you need a prophet, a false prophet. So he was an Armenian Syrian who had a knowledge of divination. Now, soothsayers and magicians traveled from one place to another, telling fortunes, predicting events, uttering oracles. They are consulted by kings, princes, and the wealthy. The true God would usually make his will known by dreams or visions. If he was talking to an individual. Now, prophets were a different story of how they would know things. The knowledge that the patriarchs had still lingered in his homeland, which accounted for his familiarity of the true God. Verse 7 through 12.
And the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the rewards or the fees of the divination in their hand. And they came unto Balaam and spake unto him the words of Balak. And he said unto them, Lodge here this night, and I will bring you word again, as the Lord shall speak unto me. And the princes of Moab abode with Balaam. And God came unto Balaam and said, What men are these with thee? And Balaam said unto God, Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, hath sent unto me, saying, Behold, there is a people come out of Egypt, which covereth the face of the earth. Come now, curse me them. Peradventure I shall be able to overcome them and drive them out. And God said unto Balaam, Thou shalt not go with them. Thou shalt not curse the people, for they are blessed.
I think the word of God interprets itself right where it's written. Okay? Very clear. God said, Balaam, you shall not go. You shall not curse. That is a blessed people. Now, God is working behind the scenes. Israel knows nothing of Balak sending for Balaam to curse them. The children of Israel had just had two major victories with the death of Sihon and Og. They are doing very well. They don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Many times again, God protects his people. Like here, God is protecting his people without their knowledge of what's happening. There will be long-lasting consequences to these nations for attempting to do this. Deuteronomy, we'll be coming back to the numbers in a minute, but Deuteronomy 23 verses 3 through 6.
An Ammonite or Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. Even to their 10th generation shall they not enter into the congregation of the Lord forever, because they met you not with bread and with water in the way when you came forth out of Egypt, and because they hired against thee Balaam, the son of Beor, of Pethor, of Mesopotamia, to curse thee. Nevertheless, the Lord thy God would not hearken unto Balaam, but the Lord thy God turned the curse into a blessing unto thee, because the Lord thy God loved thee. Thou shalt not seek their peace, nor their prosperity all thy days forever.
So that's kind of a rather stringent opposition for not doing what they're supposed to be doing and for getting Balaam. God has instructed Balaam on what he is not to do. Question, will he be obedient to his commands? Number 22:13. And Balaam rose up in the morning, and he said unto the princes of Balak, Go home, get you back unto your land. And I love the way this is worded. For the Lord refuses to give me leave to go with you. Even though I want to go, even though I want to collect the rewards of divination, God said I can't go. I can't go with you. Right? I can't go curse this people. God's refusing to let me go. That's his attitude. Verse 14.
And the princes of Moab rose up, and they went unto Balak and said, Balaam refuses to come with us. And Balak sent yet again princes, more and more honorable than they. They came to Balaam and said unto him, Thus saith Balak, the son of Zippor, Let nothing, I pray thee, hinder thee from coming unto me. For I will promote thee unto very great honor, and I will do whatsoever thou sayest unto me. Come therefore, I pray thee, curse me this people. And Balaam answered and said unto the servants of Balak, If Balak would give me his house full of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the word of the Lord my God to do less or more.
At the outset, Balaam was firm in his conviction and appeared to be loyal to God. He already has his answer from God, though. But he also knew that the rewards of divination would increase substantially as he was constrained by Balak. The longer he held out, the more, the price would go up to entice him to come. Verse 19, Now therefore I pray you, tarry ye also here this night, that I may know the Lord what he'll say unto me. And God came to Balaam at night, and this is again probably in a vision, and said unto him, If the men come to call thee, rise up and go with them. But yet the word which I shall say unto thee, that shalt thou do. And Balaam rose up in the morning, saddled his axe, and went with the princes of Moab. Once again, God gave him specific details. If they come and call you, then you can go. However, Balaam disobeys God and just decides to leave with them. That kind of, let's put this politely, that displeases God immensely. Verse 22.
And God's anger was kindled because he went. And the angel of the Lord stood in the way for an adversary against him. Now he was riding upon his ass, and his two servants were with him. And the ass saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand. And the ass turned aside out of the way and went into the field. And Balaam smote the ass to turn her into the way. But the angel of the Lord stood in a path of the vineyards, a wall being on this side and a wall on that side.
The roads, which lead through fields and vineyards, were very narrow. One would have trouble passing another one, if they were coming up against somebody. It take a lot of care, a lot of caution, a lot of twister moves to get by them. And the walls there, though, were stone or mud brick to prevent the soil from being washed off by the rains. So they built walls to keep the soil there. Verse 25, Bob.
And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she thrust herself unto the wall and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall. And he smote her again. And the angel of the Lord went further and stood in a narrow place where was no way to turn either to the right hand or to the left. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she fell down under Balaam. Balaam's anger was kindled, and he smote the ass with a staff. And the Lord opened the mouth of the ass, and she said unto Balaam, What have I done unto thee, that thou hast smitten me these 3 times? And Balaam said unto the ass, Because thou hast mocked or made a fool of me. I would there were a sword in my hand, for now would I kill thee. And the ass said unto Balaam, Am not I thine ass upon which thou hast ridden ever since I was thine unto this day? Was I ever known to do so unto thee? And he said, Nay.
Now, this isn't your typical travel venture. This is before cars talk to you, telling you which way to go. Your ass talking to you and telling you. But this is before all what cars do today. And in verse 35, then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, his sword drawn in his hand, and he bowed down his head and fell flat on his face. Show a little bit of respect. This kind of reminds you of the record in 2 Kings 6:17, where Elisha says, "All right, open my servant's eyes, because more is with us than with them." And he showed him a vision of horses and chariots of fire all around. He just opened his eyes. There's something going on. Here it's an angel of the Lord just happened to be there. But the donkey could see it. And the angel of the Lord said unto him, "Wherefore hast thou smitten thy ass these 3 times?" I love that. The angel, what are you hitting your ass for? Isn't his fault? Behold, I went out to withstand you, because the way is perverse before me. And the ass saw me and turned from me these 3 times. Unless she had turned from me, surely now also I'd slain you and saved her alive. And Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, "Okay, I've sinned. My fault, my bad. For I knew not that you stood in the way against me. Now, therefore, if it to please thee, if it's evil in your sight, I'll head home. I'm out of here. I'll go back." And the angel of the Lord said to Balaam, "Go with the men, but only the word that I shall speak unto thee, that thou shalt speak." So Balaam continued with the princes of Balak. He, continued. I can imagine what all those people and the servants were all thinking, because he's stopping, he's talking to an angel, that nobody else could see. He's just having a discussion about his ass there. All right. There appears to be no real remorse within Balaam. It was just a discontinuing of an outward act. Okay, I won't go. God withdraws his restraint, but charges Balaam to say only what he tells him. Verse 36, and when Balak heard that Balaam was come, he went out to meet him unto the city of Moab, which is by the border of Arnon, which is in the utmost coast. And Balak said to Balaam, "Did I not earnestly send unto thee to call thee? Wherefore camest thou not unto me? Am I not able to indeed to promote thee to honor? I got a lot of money for you, dude." And Balaam said to Balak, "Lo, I am come unto thee. Have I now any power at all to say anything? The word that God puts in my mouth, that shall I speak." And Balaam went with Balak, and they came to this place. All right. And Balak offered oxen and sheep and sent to Balaam and to the princes that were with him. And it came to pass on the morrow that Balak took Balaam and brought him up into a high place of Baal, that thence he might see the utmost, just a fraction of the people. He took him up to a place you could see just a fraction of the people. Now, Baal, of course, is the god of fertility, and he was usually worshipped in fertile regions where the soil was rich and water was abundant. Areas of Israel were poor and dry, such as the Judean hills. Thus, Israel could be lured by the sensual Baal worship of eating and drinking and practicing whoredoms in the temples to Baal, which at times would become way too common in Israel. People believed that the gods were pleased with the savor of the burnt offerings. Thus, Balaam is going to put on quite the religious show, right? He's going to have a big, all right, build me 7 altars, put 7 oxen, put 7 rams. It's all for show, not because God asked him to do so. And while the meat was being broiled, the soothsayer would often meditate and then offer an oracle to the royal interpreter. And unfortunately for Balak, God had told Balaam to speak only the truth and bless Israel. Numbers 23, 1-3.
And Balaam said unto Balak, "Build me here 7 altars, and prepare me here 7 oxen and 7 rams." And Balak did as Balaam had spoken. And Balak and Balaam offered on every altar a bullock and a ram. And Balaam said unto Balak, "Stand by thy burnt offering, and I will go. Peradventure the Lord will come to meet me, and whatsoever he showeth me, I will tell thee." And he went to a high place.
God now enters the picture, and he informs Balaam specifically what to prophesy. Verse 4, and God met Balaam, and he said unto him, "Oh, look, Lord, I prepared 7 altars, and I've offered upon an altar a bullock and a ram." God's like, "Yeah, okay, great." And the Lord put a word in Balaam's mouth and said, "Return unto Balak, and thus thou shalt speak." And he returned unto him, and lo, he stood by the burnt sacrifice. He and all the princes of Moab were there. And he took up a parable, he took up a discourse, and said, "Balak, the king of Moab, hath brought me from Aram out of the mountains of the east, saying, Come, curse me, Jacob. Come, denounce Israel. How shall I curse whom God has not cursed? How shall I defy or denounce whom the Lord has not defiled? For from the top of the rocks I see him, and from the hills I behold him. Lo, the people shall dwell alone, and shall not be reckoned among the nations. Right? Are they separate from all the nations of the world? Absolutely. Here's Balaam laying it out. Who can count the dust of Jacob? And that's a figure for the multitude of the people. Remember, God told Abraham his offspring would be as the dust of the sea. It's the multitude. Who can count the multitude of Jacob, or the member of the fourth part of Israel? Let me die the death of the righteous or the upright, and let my last end be like his. This people are not the same as all the other nations. I cannot curse them who God has not cursed. I am limited to say whatever God wants me to say. Verse 11.
And Balak said unto Balaam, What hast thou done to me? I took thee to curse mine enemies, and behold, thou hast blessed them altogether. And he answered and said, Must I not take heed to speak that which the Lord hath put in my mouth?
Well, I didn't, deter Balak at all. There's got to be a way. Balaam will curse them instead of bless them. There's got to be let me figure this out. All right, verse 13. Let's try something different.
And Balak said unto him, Come, I pray thee, with me to another place, from whence thou mayest see them. Thou shalt see but the utmost part. You only saw a fraction of them, and shall not see them all. And curse me them from thence. And he brought him to the field of Zepharim, to the top of Pisgah, and built 7 altars, and offered a bullock and a ram on every altar. And he said unto Balak, Stand here by thy burnt offering, while I meet the Lord yonder.
After another useless display of man's activity, which is what religion is, God still does not change his mind. Verse 16.
And the Lord met Balaam, and put a word in his mouth, and said, Go again unto Balak, and say thus. And when he came to him, behold, he stood by his burnt offering, and the princes of Moab with him. And Balak said unto him, What hath the Lord spoken? And he took up his parable, or his discourse, and said, Rise up, Balak, and hear. Hearken unto me, thou son of Zippor.
Balaam now makes one of the greatest statements about God in the entire Old Testament. And in verse 19, he says, God is not a man that he should lie, neither the son of man that he should repent, or neither the son of man that he should be given counsel. Somebody's going to give God counsel, or that God's going to change his mind. Hath he said, shall he not do it? Or hath he spoken, shall he not make it good? Shall he not fulfill it? If God says it, it's going to happen. God's got the power and the ability to back up what he says. Verse 20, Behold, I have received commandment to bless, and he hath blessed, and I cannot reverse it. He hath not beheld iniquity in Jacob, neither has he seen perverseness or malice in Israel. And that's quite a statement, based upon what everything we've been reading. He has not beheld iniquity in Jacob, nor has he seen malice in Israel. The Lord his God is with him, and the shout of a king is among them. God brought them out of Egypt. He hath, as it were, the strength of a wild ox. Surely there is no enchantment against Jacob. No devil spirit can, in our day and time, no devil spirit can overrule a believer if they stand for God. There's no enchantment against Jacob. Neither is there any divination against Israel. According to this time, it shall be said of Jacob and of Israel, what has God wrought? Now, those of you who know your history, when they did the first message on the telegraph, that was the message. What has God wrought? That they could communicate with one another over a large distance. And it comes from this verse. Behold, the people shall rise up as a great lion and lift up himself as a young lion. He shall not lie down until he eat or until he devours the prey and drink the blood of the slain. Now, again, could God have mentioned the times the people of Israel were disobedient? Yeah, but instead, God has Balaam speak about how they are a blessed nation and he is their God. God just didn't bring up anything else. All right, verse 25.
And Balak said unto Balaam, neither curse them at all, nor bless them at all. And Balaam answered and said unto Balak, told not I thee, saying, all that the Lord speaketh that I must do? Balak said unto Balaam, come, I pray thee, I will bring thee unto another place. Peradventure it will please God that thou mayest curse me them from thence. And Balak brought Balaam unto the top of Peor, that looketh toward Jeshimon, the wilderness. And Balaam said unto Balak, build me here 7 altars, and prepare me here 7 bullocks and 7 rams. And Balak did as Balaam had said, and offered a bullock and a ram on every altar.
Balaam he just can't just walk and say, God told me this. He's got to do the whole show. All right, let's do the whole bull and ram extravaganza again. He's got to play the role. If I'm going to be talking to God, I got to have something that you guys can identify with. All right, so we kill 7 more bulls and 7 more rams. We have to build another 7 altars. Numbers 24. I'm going to switch to the English Standard Version with this chapter. So Numbers 24, 1-4, English Standard Version. When Balaam saw that it pleased the Lord to bless Israel, he did not go at other times to look for omens or enchantments, but set his face towards the wilderness. See, he was trying to come up with the right enchantment, the right omen, the right words, the secret code of how to curse somebody. He'd go try and figure that out. Now he goes, God's told me twice, nothing's going to change. So he didn't go looking for enchantments. And Balaam lifted up his eyes, saw Israel camping tribe by tribe, and the Spirit of God came upon him. And he took up his discourse and said, the oracle of Balaam, the son of Beor, the oracle of the man whose eye is opened, the oracle of him who hears the words of God, who sees the vision of the Almighty, falling down with his eyes uncovered. King James is falling into a trance, but it's falling down with his eyes uncovered. He's seeing a vision. Balaam now gives a prophecy in highly poetic strains, starting with the impressiveness of the immense camp of the Israelites. Verse 5, he starts with, how lovely are your tents, O Jacob, your encampments, O Israel, like palm groves that stretch afar, like gardens beside a river, like alloys, or King James has line alloys. And a line alloy is an Aramaic shrub whose conical shape resembles tents. So he's looking and going, look at that. It looks like a beautiful, alloy out there, all those tents and the shapes they're in, that the Lord has planted, like cedar trees besides the waters. Water shall flow from his buckets, and his seed shall be in many waters. His king shall be higher than Agag, and his kingdom shall be exalted. The redundant imagery depicts the humble origin, rapid progression, and prosperity of Israel. Water is symbolic of light, understanding, and abundance. Balaam saw that Israel was called for a great mission, to become a light to the Gentiles. All these references are relative to the spiritual mission of Israel and not to a political kingdom. This prophecy was fulfilled in Jesus Christ. Verses 8 and 9.
God brings him out of Egypt, and is for him like the horns of the wild ox. He shall eat up the nations, his adversaries, and shall break their bones in pieces and pierce them through with arrows. He crouched, he laid down like a lion and like a lioness. Who will rouse him up? Blessed are those who bless you, and cursed are those who curse you.
The references to the power and greatness of God who brought Israel out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand. He was to destroy their enemies. Now, Balak has had enough of the good things that were said about this people that he wanted cursed. I'm getting a little tired here, Verse 10, and Balak's anger was kindled against Balaam. He struck his hands together. And Balak said to Balaam, I called you to curse thy enemies, and behold, you blessed them 3 times. Now, to strike, the struck or smote hands together among Oriental people is an indication of the most violent rage and humiliating discharge. That's what Lamsa says about it. It's just very violent. Verse 11.
Now, therefore, flee to your own place, I said. I will certainly honor you, but the Lord has held you back from honor. And Balaam said to Balak, did I not tell your messengers whom you sent to me? If Balak should give me his house full of silver and gold, I would not be able to go beyond the word of the Lord to do either good or bad of my own will. What the Lord speaks, that will I speak. And now, behold, I am going to my people. Come, I will let you know what this people will do to your people in the latter days.
Balak did not want Balaam's counsel, but information that would curse them. That's what I kept getting. He didn't want to hear any counsel from Balaam, but Balaam's going to tell him what's going to happen now. It wasn't bad enough that Balak had to listen to the blessings that God told Balaam, but now he's going to take it up a notch and describe to him the future that does not end well for him and his people. Verse 15, and he took up his discourse, or he continued prophesying in that poetic style, and he said, the oracle of Balaam, the son of Beor, the oracle of the man whose eye is opened, the oracle of him who hears the words of God and knows the knowledge of the Most High, who sees the vision of the Almighty, falling down with his eyes uncovered. I mean, that's that translating King James. I see him, but not now. I beheld him, but not near. A star, signifying hope and light. A star shall come, hope and light shall come out of Jacob. And a scepter, which is a rule of justice and righteousness, is going to rise out of Israel. It shall crush the forehead of Moab and break down or destroy all the children of Seth, Sheath, rather. All these references are relevant to the messianic hope of Israel, which were to be fulfilled in the future by the Messiah. This is a specific prophecy about the coming Messiah who would destroy all iniquity. Verse 18, Edom shall be a possession. Seir also his enemies. They shall be a possession. Israel is doing valiantly, or Israel is going to be triumphant. And one from Jacob shall exercise dominion and destroy the survivors of cities. Then he looked on Amalek and took up the discourse and said, Amalek was the first among the nations, but its end is utter destruction, or its end, it's going to perish forever. And he looked on the Kenites and took up this discourse and said, enduring is your dwelling place, and your nest is set in the rock. Nevertheless, the Kenite shall be burned when Ashur takes you away captive. And he took up this discourse and said, alas, who shall live when God does this? But ships shall come from Kittim, and shall afflict Ashur and Eber, and he too shall come to utter destruction. That's a nice going away. Everybody's going to die. Everything's going to be destroyed. Israel's going to have the Messiah. So then Balaam, when he got done, rose up and headed home. And Balak went his way. Balaam, however, never makes it back home to Mesopotamia. Before he left, he gives counsel to Balak that's going to cause the children of Israel to commit whoredoms with Baal Peor, Lord of Peor, is another way of saying it, who is an idol of Moab. He's more well known as Shemash. The Moabites and the Midianites, through the counsel of Balaam, are going to invite many of the Israelites to participate in their strange, alluring, and sensual pagan ritual, committing the double offenses of idolatry with immorality or lasciviousness. Balaam's counsel is going to cost 24,000 Israelites their lives. Numbers 25, verse 1. And Israel abode, they lived in Shittim. You know, they'd taken out, killed the king, took over all the land, took all the people, took everything. So they lived in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they invited the people into the sacrifices of their gods. And the people did eat. And then they bowed down to their gods. And Israel joined himself to Baal Peor. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. They haven't even made it into the promised land yet. And the Lord said to Moses, here's what you need to do. Take all of the heads, take all of the rulers of the people, and hang them up before the Lord. Hang them up in the sun, that the fierce anger of the Lord may be turned away from Israel. See, the chiefs of Israel had been negligent in their duties and lax in enforcing the law. Thus, many of the Israelites committed fornications with the Moabite women. Therefore, God was angry with the leaders of Israel, who themselves had been guilty of this act. Verse 5.
And Moses said unto the judges of Israel, Slay ye every one of his men that were joined unto Baal Peor. And behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto his brethren family a Midianish woman in the sight of Moses, and in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel, who were weeping before the door at the entrance of the tabernacle of the congregation. And when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation and took a javelin or a spear in his hand. And he went after the man of Israel into the tent, and thrust both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her belly. So the plague was stayed from the children of Israel. And those that died in the plague were 24,000.
Because of Eleazar's, his zealousness, God rewarded him and his family with the everlasting priesthood as long as there was the national existence of Israel. Him and his family. Verse 10. And the Lord said unto Moses, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, has turned my wrath away from the children of Israel. Can you imagine that? The people are there crying and making intercession, and the leader's talking about it, and this guy just dances right in, with his Moabitess woman. Anyway, okay. So we got Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest. He has turned my wrath away from the children of Israel, while he was zealous for my sake among them, that I consume not the children of Israel in my jealousy. Oh, I was getting ready to consume them, but he stopped it. Wherefore say I, behold, I give unto him my covenant of peace, and he shall have it, and his seed after him, even the covenant of an everlasting or a perpetual priesthood, because he was zealous for his God and made an atonement for the children of Israel. Now, the name of the Israelite that was slain, even that was slain with the Midianite woman, was Zimri, the son of Salu, who was a prince of a chief house among the Simeonites. So he was one of the top rulers of Simeon, of the tribe of Simeon. Okay, and the name of the Midianite woman that was slain was Cosbi, the daughter of Zur, and he was head over a people and came from the chief house of Midian. So we're talking upper echelon people involved in all of this. And the Lord said to Moses, Vex the Midianites, or harass the Midianites and strike them down, for they vexed or distressed you with their treachery, wherewith they have beguiled or plotted against you in the matter of Peor, in the matter of Cosbi, the daughter of the prince of Midian, their sister, which was slain in the day of the plague for Peor's sake. Instead of open warfare, Moab plotted insidious ways to accomplish Israel's ruin with idolatry and corruption. Aaron's grandson Phinehas zealously appeased the anger of the Lord and was rewarded with the lineage of the priesthood. We go to Numbers 31 now. Numbers 31, verse 1 through 8.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Avenge the children of Israel of the Midianites. Afterward shalt thou be gathered unto thy people. And Moses spake unto the people, saying, Arm some of yourselves unto the war, and let them go against the Midianites, and avenge the Lord of Midian. Of every tribe 1,000, throughout all the tribes of Israel shall ye send to the war. So there were delivered out of the thousands of Israel 1,000 of every tribe, 12,000 armed for war. And Moses sent them to the war, 1,000 of every tribe, them and Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest, to the war, with the holy instruments, the holy vessels of the sanctuary, and the trumpets to blow in his hand. And they warred against the Midianites, as the Lord commanded Moses. And they slew all the males. And they slew the kings of Midian, beside the rest of them that were slain, namely Evi, and Rechem, and Zur, and Hur, and Reba, 5 kings of Midian. Balaam also, the son of Beor, they slew with the sword.
That's kind of a rather unceremoniously into Balaam, huh? Verse 9, and the children of Israel then. So Balaam never made it back to Mesopotamia. He hung around and he got taken out here. And the children of Israel took all the women of the Midian captives and their little ones, and took the spoil of all the cattle and all the flocks and all their goods, and they burnt all the cities wherein they dwelt and all their unwalled villages, goodly castles as unwalled villages, with fire. And they took all the spoil, they took the plunder, men and beasts, and they brought the captives and the plunder and the spoil unto Moses and Eleazar the priest, and unto the congregation of the children of Israel, unto the camp at the plains of Moab, which are by Jordan, near Jericho. And Moses and Eleazar the priest, and all the princes of the congregation, they went forth to meet them outside the camp. And Moses was extremely wroth, angry with the officers of the army, with the captains over thousands, and the captains over hundreds, which came from the battle. And Moses said unto them, why have you saved all the women alive? And the next verse informs us what Balaam told Balak to do, and it worked against the men of Israel. Verse 16, behold, these women, they caused the children of Israel through the counsel or advice of Balaam. Balaam gave them the advice, the counsel, and these women carried it out to commit trespass, to act treacherously against the Lord in the matter of Beor. And there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord. See, they heeded the counsel of Balaam, and many in Israel committed transgressions against the Lord with the women of Moab. They're now standing there in front of Moses as captives. And Moses is like, what are you doing bringing all these women here? What should we do about this? I ask you, Bob. Verse 17. Bob, you're muted. Bob, you're muted. Bob,
Now,
you're
therefore,
unmuted.
now, therefore, kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman that hath known man by lying with him. But all the women, children, the young girls that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves.
Yes, take them out. Balaam is mentioned in the New Testament and not fondly spoken of by God. In 2 Peter 2:12-16 from the Working Translation. However, these false teachers who slander matters of which they are ignorant, like natural creatures without the ability to reason, which are born for capture and destruction, will be destroyed by their own destruction, receiving in return the pay of injustice. These spots and blemishes consider it a pleasure to revel in luxury during the day, feasting with you in their deceptions, having eyes full of adultery, and being unable to rest from sin. They entice unstable souls. They have a heart exercised by greediness. They are children of curse. Forsaking the straight way, they were misled, following the way of Balaam, the son of Beor, who loved the pay of injustice. For he was reproved for his own transgression. A dumbass speaking with a man's voice restrained the insanity of the prophet. That was a great translation of Walter has here. It was, a dumbass speaking with a man's voice restrained the insanity of the prophet. Not the dumbass, but the prophet, the insanity of him. And in Revelation 2:14, but I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed unto idols, and to commit fornication or to practice sexual immorality. All right, let's go to Deuteronomy 4. Deuteronomy 4:1. In the book of Deuteronomy, the record of Baal Peor is used as a referendum by God to do good. Deuteronomy 4, verse 1.
Now, therefore, hearken, O Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgments or rules which I teach you, for to do them, that ye may live and go in and possess the land which the Lord God of your fathers giveth you. Ye shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall ye diminish aught from it or take from it, that ye may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. Your eyes have seen what the Lord did because of Baal Peor, for all the men that followed Baal Peor, the Lord thy God hath destroyed them from among you. But ye did cleave unto the Lord your God, are alive every one of you this day.
And then chapter 4 continues with an exhortation by Moses to the children of Israel to continue to stand for God, to do what he commands, and then receive God's blessings. Verse 5, this deals with the English Standard Version, 5 through 9. See, I have taught you statutes and rules, as the Lord my God commanded me, that you should do them in the land that you are entering to take possession of. Keep them and do them, for that will be your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the peoples, who, when they hear all their statutes, will say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. I love the way God's describing them. Because of the law that they have, other nations will see it and they'll say, hey, they're a great nation. All of Israel is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that has a God so near to it as the Lord our God is to us, whenever we call upon him? And what great nation is there that has statutes and rules so righteous as all this law that I set before you today? Only take care and keep your soul diligently, lest you forget the things that your eyes have seen, unless you depart from your heart all the days of your life. Make them known to your children and to your children's children. Teach it. Keep passing it down. Keep it alive. And then we'll jump down to verses 25 through 31, English Standard.
When you father children and children's children and have grown old in the land, if you act corruptly by making a carved image in the form of anything, and by doing what is evil in the sight of the Lord your God, so as to provoke him to anger, I call heaven and earth to witness against you today, that you will soon utterly perish from the land that you are going over the Jordan to possess. You will not live long in it, but will be utterly destroyed. And the Lord will scatter you among the peoples, and you will be left few in number among the nations where the Lord will drive you. And there you will serve gods of wood and stone, the work of human hands, that neither see nor hear nor eat nor smell. But from there you will seek the Lord your God, and you will find him, if you search after him with all your heart and with all your soul. When you are in tribulation, and all these things come upon you in the latter days, you will return to the Lord your God and obey his voice. For the Lord your God is a merciful God. He will not leave you or destroy you or forget the covenant with your fathers that he swore to them.
Moses reminds the children of Israel that they have what they had witnessed, and to continue to let their children know about the goodness and greatness of serving the true God, and some of the consequences will happen if they stop doing it. So verse 32, English Standard Version, for ask now of the days that are past, which were before you since the day that God created man on the earth, and ask from one end of heaven to the other, whether such a great thing as this has ever happened or was ever heard of. Go ahead, Google it, see what you find. Did any people ever hear the word of God speaking out of the midst of a fire, as you have heard, and you're still alive? Or has any God ever attempted to go and take a nation for himself from the midst of another nation? By trials and by signs, by wonders, by war, by a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, and by great deeds of terror, all of which the Lord your God did for you in Egypt before your eyes. To you it was shown that you might know that the Lord is God. There's no other beside him. Out of heaven, he let you hear his voice, that he might discipline you. And on earth, he let you see his great fire. You heard the words out of the midst of the fire. And because he loved your fathers and chose their offspring after them, brought you out of Egypt with his own presence, by his own power, driving out before you nations that are greater and mightier than you, to bring you in, to give you their land for inheritance as it is this day. Know, therefore, today, and lay it to your heart, that the Lord is God in heaven above and on the earth beneath, and there is no other. Therefore, you shall keep his statutes, you shall keep his commandments, as I command you today, that it may go well with you and with your children after you, and that you may prolong your days in the land that the Lord your God has given you for all time.